Tonight with Vincent Browne. What's the true state of the Irish Church following abuse scandals and the Bishop's meeting with the Pope? We hear the Bishop's side. Plus our usual preview of tomorrow's papers. Tonight with Vincent Browne, 11:05 on 3.
Tonight with Vincent Browne, sponsored by Bank of Scotland Ireland.
Some great late-night TV choices this Wednesday night. Drama with Holloway at 12, and then we've the Graham Norton show at 1 o'clock. Now though, before we join Vincent Browne, we've a roundup of Wednesday's nightly news.
HSE and the Minister for Health under fire over Tala X-ray scandal. Greens in disarray over rotation deal. They admit it was true. And Hayes is sentenced to life for Anne Corcoran murder. Good evening. The HSE and the Minister for Health, Mary Harney, are under fire tonight. They're being asked to explain when they first became aware of the massive X-ray problem at Tala Hospital.
The HSE faced a barrage of questions at Tala Hospital today about nearly 58,000 X-rays which were unread by a consultant radiologist for up to 5 years. As a result, 2 cancer patients had their diagnoses delayed. One has died, the other is being treated at the hospital. In April 2009, a local GP raised concerns about unreported X-rays to the Health Information and Quality Authority. Last June, HIQA was told of a backlog of 4,000 unreported X-rays, but was assured they were mostly routine. Between September and November last, HIQA requested a written report from then Chief Executive Michael Lyons 3 times. Last December, the new Chief Executive, Kevin Conlon, assured HIQA the backlog was being reduced. But this January, the scale of the problem was revealed. There were 57,921 X-rays, which had never been reviewed by a consultant radiologist. Today, more than 34,000 X-rays have been accounted for, but there are more than 23,000 still to be reviewed.
The situation is not acceptable, how it arose in the first place. But the action that the hospital has taken since December is satisfactory, and they're dealing with it as fast as they can.
Consultants say hospital management was warned repeatedly about a lack of radiologists.
Tala Hospital is the second busiest hospital in the city and has by far the lowest number of consultant radiologists available to do that. And they have been pointing out for a considerable period of time that there was a backlog.
An independent investigation into the problem has now been launched. Siobhan Bastable, TV3 News.
10 days after TV3 News first broke the story, a Green Party minister broke ranks and admitted there was a deal to rotate ministries. The Taoiseach also admitted the issue is being discussed ahead of the cabinet reshuffle.
Minister. John Gormley was surrounded by his senior party colleagues tonight as he faced questions from the media on the secret deal in the Green Party to rotate their ministers in a cabinet reshuffle. The story was broken by TV3 News 10 days ago, but Minister Gormley was reluctant to elaborate tonight.
The fact of the matter is that I, as party leader, will make recommendations to the Taoiseach, and it is the constitutional prerogative of the Taoiseach to act on that as he sees fit. And that is it. And anything else is sheer speculation. And I would just tell you that, don't believe everything you read in newspapers. And any conversations I have in the NEC and any conversations I have with my parliamentary colleagues are absolutely confidential. It doesn't mean they're secret, it means they're confidential. And I would ask you to respect that, because frankly, this is becoming boring for most people at this stage.
And with that, Eamon Ryan made a quick getaway, perhaps keen to flee, because earlier today he became the first member of the Green Parliamentary Party to publicly confirm the existence of a deal.
We were looking and are looking always to kind of be innovative in politics, and concepts like rotation, yes, we support that. But ultimately, I think what I said last week is true, that it's a matter for the Taoiseach working with Minister Gormley to manage the reshuffle.
All this was more information than was gleaned from the Taoiseach when he spoke today.
These are matters for discussion, but I don't want to get into any speculation on cabinet formation. The important thing is that the Fianna Fáil and the Greens are committed to working together to meet the challenges we face.
Both the Taoiseach and John Gormley say the shape of the next cabinet is a matter for them alone. It seems we'll have to wait until a reshuffle is announced to see if the Green Party deal has played a part. Geraldine Lina, TV3 News.
Oliver Hayes has been given a life sentence for murdering Anne Corcoran in West Cork. Afterwards, her family gave their reaction.
The brave pensioner was no match for Oliver Hayes, despite fighting hard to defend herself throughout the horrific ordeal. Hayes had huge debts and decided to go to Anne Corcoran's house on the outskirts of Bandon and get her to hand over cash, but she wasn't at home. It was now dark and Hayes lay waiting for his victim and pounced when she arrived home. She refused to give him any of her bank details, so he bundled her into the back of her car and drove around for some time before bringing her back to his house, where he continued to interrogate her. Wrapped in electric cable, Anne Corcoran was beaten with a stick as well as the top of a kitchen table, and eventually parted with the information. Over the next 4 days, Hayes withdrew various amounts of money from her bank account using her bank-linked card. At this stage, Anne Corcoran's body was decomposing in an upstairs bedroom at his rundown home. Hayes then brought her body to a wooded area near Ballinspittle, where he burned it and then buried her charred remains before going on a skiing holiday. While off on holidays, Anne Corcoran's distraught family, neighbours and Gardaí were out searching.
She was a lovely little person and no need to do that though. She got an awful death, but I hope to God, wherever she is, she's happy.
14 days after she was abducted and killed, Hayes was arrested at his home in Bandon and finally cracked and led Gardaí to where he had buried Anne Corcoran's body. Can I ask you, what are your thoughts of Oliver Hayes?
Not good. I knew him as a very small boy and I thought he was a nice young lad, but he wasn't. It turned out so different. This pain is on us now and will be for the rest of our life. Yeah.
As the 50-year-old former painter was led away to begin life behind bars at Cork Prison, Anne Corcoran's nieces and nephews said Hayes robbed her of the chance to live out her remaining years in the comfort of her friends and family. And a closed coffin is no way to say goodbye to a loved one. Paul Byrne, TV3 News, Cork.
Gardaí have officially been cleared in relation to the death of a Dublin man in custody 5 years ago. An investigation into the death of Terence Wheelock, who was discovered unconscious in a Garda cell, found no evidence that he was assaulted or mistreated by members of the force. The report does, however, criticise Gardaí for what it describes as systemic failures. Finally, now to sport. Manchester United have cruised into the quarter-finals of the Champions League after they hammered AC Milan 4-0 at Old Trafford. That's it for now. TV3 News is back at 7 in the morning tonight with Vincent Browne is next. Good evening.
If you fancy some late-night drama, don't miss Holloway, which is on the way at 12. And not forgetting some celeb chat with the Graham Norton Show at 1. Right now, though, it's Tonight with Vincent Browne.
Whenever I hear, "it can't be done," I know I'm close to success. Tonight with Vincent Browne, sponsored by Bank of Scotland Ireland.
In the news today, the Catholic bishops gave their first press conference since their meeting with the Pope 4 weeks ago. We were present and asked the bishops questions about that meeting at the Vatican and the subsequent statement, which many people found unsatisfactory. Tonight we'll bring excerpts from the press conference, and afterwards we'll discuss what was said with Patsy McGarry of the Irish Times and Mary Raftery, the television journalist who did so much to expose the clerical child sexual abuse scandal. We'll also have our usual preview of tomorrow morning's newspapers, when we'll be joined by Bill Tormey, a consultant at Beaumont Hospital, who will talk about the X-ray scandal at Tallaght Hospital. That's on the Tonight programme after the break.
Tonight with Vincent Browne, sponsored by Bank of Scotland Ireland.
Incarcerating the most notorious female criminals in Europe's largest women's prison. Locked up behind heavy security. They try to survive their sentence. Enter the world of the real-life bad girls. The gritty documentary series about being behind bars. Holloway, tonight at midnight on 3.
Expert, he's been, bamsa, tangsa, salapan sila po. Lungo kwa ko, lungo kwa mi. Haibo, ilarangan. Kungeke kuphele. Mhlambe sizathola okunye noma ngelanga elilandelayo. La 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 la.
Fact, some bacteria are almost indestructible. They can even survive in lava. So think how easily the bacteria in your kitchen could survive. Most spray cleaners only do half the job since they can leave bacteria behind. New Dettol Complete Clean cuts through tough grease better than the leading cleaner and kills 99.9% of bacteria, giving your surfaces a complete clean every time. For the dirt you can see and the germs you can't, use Dettol Complete Clean.
People, emotions, real-life dilemmas, and heaps of glamour. Treat yourself to Female magazine every Thursday in the Irish Daily Mail.
Text message. What do I like about driving a cab? The people I love. I'm a people person. I'm definitely not a traffic person. After driving this cab 10 hours a day, I know it inside and out. I know its idiosyncrasies, I know its moods. So I use Texaco with Techron. The engine runs clean, the cab runs great, less moody.
People who know cars trust the unbeatable cleaning power of Texaco with Techron.
I can usually spot the big tippers. You? I'm not expecting much.
Tomorrow you'd like to be smiling, but constipation means you feel unhappy inside. Why wait? Senecot works alongside the natural bacteria in your gut, so you can soon feel happy inside. Wow. Fabulous. And happy outside. Senecot.
Feel happy inside. Don't have the luxury of time but want luxurious hair color?
XL10 from L'Oreal Paris, the first permanent hair color that works in 10 minutes. For luxurious color, mirror shine, cashmere soft.
And grays forgotten. Cashmere soft, mirror shine. In no time.
Now voted ultimate hair colorant by Cosmo readers. XL10, trust the experts.
You're worth it.
The new Tesco for schools and clubs. Now there's a lot more than just sports and computer equipment. We've cooked up something exciting for everyone. You can collect vouchers for lots of things, from art materials to planting kits for biology. New Tesco for schools and clubs. Start collecting now.
Now with Freshness Micro Capsules. New bold 2-in-1 Crystal Rain and White Lily. For bursts of fresh fragrance all day long. Just hug. One of the huggably fresh fragrances from the new bold 2-in-1 collection. Feeling good, feeling bold.
Get all your TV favourites for just €1.20, only in this week's RTE Guide. As the All-Ireland Talent Show reaches its finale, we get up close and personal with the glamorous Gráinne Seoige. Plus, we preview the hottest shows and movies that everyone's talking about. Don't miss this week's RTE Guide for the special price of €1.20. On sale now.
You can do it for less at B&Q.
Get 20% off everything this Friday and Saturday. Simply spend €75 in store.
Tonight with Vincent Browne, sponsored by Bank of Scotland, Ireland.
The Catholic bishops met in Maynooth over the last few days for their quarterly meeting, and this afternoon 3 of the bishops gave a press conference. Let me tell you a bit about the background to that. It was the first press conference given by bishops since the meeting in Rome 4 weeks ago with the Pope. Last week, we proposed a special programme with the bishops to talk about the Vatican meeting and the statement issued subsequent to that Vatican meeting. We submitted a list of 26 questions which we would like to put to the bishops, and the request was refused, but we were told that we were free to attend the press conference. We said we would, and we would ask the questions that we had submitted at the press conference. First of all, I should tell you that today we were given just 2 hours notice of the press conference, and it then transpired that the press conference would be attended by neither the Cardinal Archbishop of Armagh, Sean Brady, nor the Archbishop of Dublin, Dermot Martin, but by 3 relatively unknown bishops, Dennis Brennan of Ferns, John McAreevy of Dromore, and Christopher Jones of Elphin. We were further informed that the press conference would be restricted to just 25 minutes because we were told the Conference of Bishops was still in session, and the 3 bishops who were giving the press conference would return to the Conference of Bishops. Now, we're going to play you some excerpts from the press conference today, but before we get there, just to say that we're joined in studio tonight by Patsy McGarry of the Irish Times, who was also at the press conference, and Mary Raftery, whose television documentaries on clerical child sexual abuse opened up the whole scandal here in Ireland. If you'd like to text us a comment on the programme, text the number 53131 and place the word tonight before your comment, or email us at tonight@tv3.ie. A live blog has been run on the programme on the website politico.ie. We go now to excerpts from the press conference, and we start with an opening statement made by the Bishop of Dromore, John McAreevy, and he's referring to a statement made by a Vatican press spokesman. Sorry about all this, but bear with me. He's referring to a statement made by a Vatican press spokesman yesterday, Jesuit priest Federico Lombardi, who denied that the Vatican had ever insisted on secrecy concerning clerical sex abuse.
There's a reference to a press release from the Vatican press office yesterday from Father Lombardi, dealing with an issue which has come up quite a lot in recent months, but in the last few years. It's this idea, or this in the 2001 norms with regard to the Church's management of what were called more serious crimes or grave crimes. There was a reference there to a pontifical secret, and that has been widely misinterpreted as an attempt by the Church to keep these matters purely within a Church sphere. And we made this point, obviously, at the recent visit to Rome. And I'm not sure if that's the reason for this clarification, but the clarification here from the Vatican is to the effect that the internal Church norms with regard to how these matters are dealt with, as we've said there in the statement, in no way precludes Church authorities from carrying out their civil obligations in regard to reporting and cooperating fully with the civil authorities in relation to any offences involving children. This is one of those kind of canards that just keeps emerging, as if it were a self-evident fact. But obviously Rome is aware of this misinterpretation and the harm that this obviously does or could potentially do to the trust that people might have in how the Church deals with these matters. And so I have to say that as a conference we appreciate hugely the fact that the Holy See, in addition to statements that we ourselves have made over recent months, makes it clear that there is no endorsement for a culture or a justification for a culture of non-cooperation with the state in regard to these matters.
You were responding to a comment by the German Justice Minister yesterday, who cited this document as basically an indication of a wall of silence when the Vatican is concerned. Can we just be clear what happened? And there were 2 letters sent out then, both in Latin, by Cardinal Ratzinger. One directing that all credible cases of clerical child sex abuse be referred to him. He would decide, or the congregation would decide, whether those cases would be dealt with in Rome by him or the congregation, or dealt with locally by the bishop. And it was accompanied by a second letter in Latin also, asking that this be kept quiet. There was no reference to civil authorities at all. Now, if people are bishops are invited, to all bishops around the world, including yourself, I take it. I mean, bishops naturally were asked to keep quiet, so their natural reaction was to do nothing else. So there was no reference to civil authorities in either letter. So people didn't act on it, didn't necessarily go to the civil authorities. Indeed, it is from the Murphy report we know that this diocese, rather the Archdiocese of Dublin, it didn't even send all the credible cases as testified by Monsignor John Dolan to Rome itself, never mind the civil authorities. But I mean, there was no reference in that letter, those two letters, to civil authorities. There was an injunction to silence.
Well, the Irish bishops in the famous The Green Book of 1996 made it clear that they took on themselves an obligation to report, and they never changed from that. Now, okay, there is an issue about the status of the Green Document, but...
Mr. John, there's a further issue. Murphy found that document was widely ignored. It wasn't there. Cardinal Connell described it at the end of 1996 in a conversation with Marion Collins, literally 11 months after it was introduced, as simply guidelines with no power in canon civil law.
Well, my own belief now is that by and large, the Green Book policy in regard to reporting was observed. There were some instances, and you quote them, but certainly the Roman document was not taken at that time by canonists as somehow countermanding the policy of the Irish bishops from 1996. And now the Holy See is making it clear. I mean, I take your point. I mean, it was open to misunderstanding, but I don't think that canonists at that time understood this to be a ban or a discouragement of cooperation with the civil authorities. And
there was no encouragement to cooperate with civil authorities.
The Irish bishops and the Americans and in other jurisdictions where these matters were being dealt with and where there was a policy, a clear policy of reporting them to the civil authorities, nobody said, now we better stop that.
In the course of your meeting with the Pope, did the bishops express the concern of the possibility of the Vatican's complicity in the cover-up of clerical child sex abuse?
In the meeting with the Pope and his advisors, there were a whole range of views obviously expressed, and one of the difficulties I think that bishops expressed was the fact that at times it wasn't always possible to get a clear guidance from the Holy See, and there wasn't always a consistent approach within the different Vatican departments. So to that extent, I think bishops and bishops have said this over the years that the Vatican could have been more clear in some of its guidance and more consistent. And to that extent, we were obviously asking for the law that has been produced in recent years, even though it has given rise to misunderstandings that we're now anxious to try and clarify. By and large, it has been helpful. And
my question was,
yes.
Did you raise the concerns about the possibility of the Vatican's complicity in the cover-up of clerical child abuse? Was that raised by the bishops?
I think in the terms in which you put it, I don't think that point was made, as I say, in those terms. But we were the thing that struck me most about and my colleagues can speak for themselves about this, was that the Vatican was not being defensive about the handling of the whole matter. It was anxious that we would deal with our responsibilities,
did the bishops
and
raise
they
this
would
issue,
deal with theirs.
or did they not? I take it they didn't. Can I just go on and ask a separate question related to this? I'm thinking particularly about the Vatican's decision to promote Desmond Connell to the position of cardinal in the year 2000, knowing that in the year 1996 he had covered up the clerical child sex abuse of Andrew Madden by Ivan Payne, and that he had used diocesan funds to compensate Ivan Payne, and that he had lied about the use of diocesan funds. Did anybody raise the question then about the promotion of Desmond Connell in circumstances where it was known he had engaged in these practices?
That point was not publicly made in the meeting.
Are you inferring that it was privately made?
Well, if it was, I wouldn't know.
Could I just say, with all this emphasis on cover-up, The cover-up has gone on for centuries, not just in the church, in the whole of it's going on today in families, in communities and societies. Why are you singling out the church?
Because there's no other instance where an institution collectively covered up the sexual abuse of children. Certainly individuals did so, but there's no other evidence of an institution.
What about the family institution, Vincent? The family institution, right out there today in community.
Come off it. We're talking about an institution such as the church or the state or whatever, where there is no other instance of a institution conspiring together to to cover up the
we know that
sexual abuse
95% of abuse out there is in families, communities and other institutions. And it's all cover-up.
Well, there's no systemic.
It's all cover-up. It's all cover-up. No one wants to admit in a family that there's a problem of that nature. No one wants to admit in a club that there's a family. And you know, I'm not justifying it.
Are you equating the embarrassment of an individual family about sexual abuse with the cover-up of the institution of the Catholic Church, ranging from priests to bishops to the Vatican itself? The entire institution engaging in a persistent cover-up of the sexual abuse of children.
I totally reject that.
I'm sorry, could I ask you, what bit do you object to? What bit do you object to? Could I just ask Christopher Jones?
Can I add one point?
No, could I just ask Christopher Jones, what do you object to?
I object to the way the church is being isolated and the focus on the church. We know, and we've made mistakes. Of course we've made mistakes. But why this huge isolation of the church and this huge focus on cover-up in the church when it has gone on for centuries? I mean, it's only now, for the first time ever, that victims have been given a voice to publicly express their pain and their suffering. And before that, for centuries, no one spoke. You know, Freud said that venereal disease among children was because of sexual abuse. He had to withdraw it. That's the kind of cover-up that has gone on for centuries.
Did the bishops, talking about the victims,
I think they're unfair and unjust to the church.
Talk about the victims. Did the bishops in the open sessions with the Pope raise specifically the concerns that the victims asked to be raised with the Pope?
Yes.
One by one.
Absolutely. The one thing that was consistently and strongly and clearly and painfully made by bishop after bishop was with regard to the impact of abuse on the victims themselves, on their families, on the community in which they lived, and it wasn't as if we were kind of trying to persuade people of something that they didn't believe. I think people there realise, and if they didn't, they realise now how just the impact of abuse on people, on their health, on their careers, on their relationships, and on their faith. So that point was made loud and clear, and very well understood. And I think it was made consistently across the board.
Why in the statement issued after the meeting with the Pope was there no acknowledgement of the complicity of the Catholic Church in covering up the incidents, covering up clerical child sex abuse, and no apology on that account?
I suppose the first thing I would say is that responsibility for the management of these cases in Ireland is in Ireland. It's within the diocese and the religious congregations and so on. It's people here who were responsible for the management of those cases. It was only, in fact, in 2001 that the Holy See made it clear, because they felt that perhaps bad judgments were being made, and that was a matter of public record at that stage. They wanted at that stage to be involved so that they could make sure that bishops had access to a wider, or so let's say, a dispassionate view.
Yes, of course. So, yes, we know. But why wasn't there an acknowledgement in the statement about the Catholic Church's institutional cover-up of clerical child sex abuse? And why wasn't there an apology on that account?
Well, we were talking about what happened in Ireland,
And there was an apology. Yes. No, there was an apology to do with the actual abuse of children, but no apology about the cover-up.
The Irish bishops at their December meeting here asked forgiveness for the way that they had mishandled this. Yeah. And there's nobody question. I want to just go back for a moment to the point that you asked Bishop Christie about earlier, and about the abuse and there is nobody disputing today that the way that the Catholic Church and its authorities handled this issue over a generation was a huge problem. I mean, it has been said catastrophic, horrendous, you can put whatever kind of words on it.
Error of judgment is all that the statement could bring itself to characterise it.
Massively misguided, massively wrong.
Why doesn't it acknowledge the criminality of the complicity? It amounted to complicity in the sexual abuse of children. And why isn't there an acknowledgement of that in the statement, and why wasn't there an apology for that?
The press release at the end of that meeting is one relatively short statement. The post letter is still to come, and in any case, the Irish bishops have made clear their own views about their past, about how things were handled. And I think what we would like to stress more importantly is the work that we're doing today under the guidance of the National Board, Ian Elliott and his colleagues, to make sure that wherever children are involved in the life of the church in future, that they will be safe. Okay. And I
want to ask a further question. And it has to do. Yes, and and it has to do with a part of the statement, and it refers to an expression of hope that the meeting would help to unify the bishops. Why did the bishops need to be helped to be unified?
Well, we don't want to be unified against anybody. We want to be unified in our commitment to doing what is absolutely right.
Yes,
for
my
now
question
and
is,
for the future.
Why did the bishops need help to be unified? It clearly implies there was disunity among the bishops.
I think that's the Holy Father's role to confirm his brothers in the faith in all sorts of ways. So it's very much to be expected.
But isn't there a clear inference in that statement that there is disunity among the Irish bishops? Isn't it clear inference?
How can the Irish Episcopal Conference regain any moral authority until you meet the basic demands of the victims and survivors, namely the resignations of all bishops named in the Murphy report? How can you sit down with Bishop Drennan at this meeting and retain any credibility? He's such a divisive figure. Why didn't you tell him that? Why did you support him?
I think I think you've been very... Father Bishop Brennan is a scholar. Martin Drennan is a scholar. Wait a minute now, let me finish, please. He's a scholar. He's a holy man. He is a holy man, and nothing has been said negative. In fact, any reference to him in the report has been positive.
That might be described as the highlights of the press conference. Patsy, it was disappointing.
Well, Vincent, having been at many of these before, it was a little livelier, I expect, than many others. I found, disappointing, I'm not quite sure, I found the comments of Bishop Jones quite extraordinary. The tone of being under siege, of the unjustified criticisms that he feels are coming in his and the church's direction. But the equation of an organised body, a corporate body like the church, with the family, for instance, or as he tried to push it across, I found utterly and completely bizarre. I mean, we know that individual families, like that case last week, there was a common case that both the husband and wife abused children, and both covered it up. But in the church, for instance in Dublin, in the Murphy report, they discovered that 4 archbishops, one after the other, systematically covered up what was going on in this archdiocese. These were men who weren't part of the problem themselves. They weren't involved in any of this activity, unlike that couple in Roscommon last week. They weren't caught into it. They were detached from it. They were objective from it, if you like, and they did it to use the Catholic definition of mortal sin with full knowledge and with full consent, and it was grievous harm. And he seems to have moved the goalposts on the whole matter, at least in his own head. I'm talking about Bishop Jones. You can't compare the abuse in the family with the abuse that this institution was found of having been responsible for in Dublin.
What did you think of the press conference, Mary?
Well, it's extraordinary to hear a bishop ask why people are singling out the church in the context of asking questions about the cover-up of child abuse. When you look at who the moral arbiters are in society, what is the organisation that we have allowed in Irish society and that have been to the fore in telling us what is right, what is wrong, what is morality, what is sin, what is virtue. And then we discover through a series of reports that they have behaved with the greatest hypocrisy according to their own rules. And then bishops complain and wonder why they're being singled out and why it is we are asking these questions about them. It displays, what it displays, I think, is an amazing detachment from real life. I mean, these people are obviously so disconnected. They live in such a kind of a rarefied atmosphere. They haven't the slightest comprehension as to why it is people get exercised over this issue. I mean, and I was very struck by the statement, you know, when the row broke in Ferns over Bishop Brennan, who was there, who didn't really say very much, looking for contributions to compensate people, contributions from parishioners. There had been a redefinition almost of what it was that they were involved in terms of cover. No mention of cover-up, no mention of negligence. It was mismanagement and or lack of resolve. And the and or really got me, and a lack of understanding. So, you know, this has now been minimised, the actual culpability. I was interested to hear Bishop McAreevy. He expressed it as massively misguided and massively wrong, which is a bit of an advance on and or lack of resolve. But, you know,
in a statement after the Vatican meeting, they called it errors of judgment.
It's absolutely extraordinary. I mean, what they respond to is how the extent to which they're pushed by what they perceive as public opinion. And they will only acknowledge you know, a little inch if they think that they can't get away with it. I mean, this statement, and I was just looking at it there in the Irish Times, this statement from Bishop Jones, that people didn't have a voice and that we have given them a voice. They have been given a voice. Victims have only been given a voice recently, as if this is some sort of gift that has come from the Catholic Church
Vincent,
to victims. It's absolutely extraordinary, but he appeared to take responsibility for giving victims a voice. Yeah. I mean, we all know that it wasn't the church that gave victims a voice. They took it themselves. There's an old saying about bishops that once you become a bishop, you'll never be hungry and you'll never be told the truth. And I do believe, frankly, that this is an illustration.
The question is, will you yourself tell the truth?
Repeat that?
The question is, surely, once you become a bishop, will you yourself tell the truth?
That's another issue indeed. Clearly, these men either haven't had access, I mean, it's hard to believe at this stage that they don't have access to the full truth. We've had 3 massive reports and another one in train. But they haven't, either they're allowing it to be interpreted for them in a particular fashion, but clearly they are in denial. And we've seen this, I mean, in statements from the likes of Bishop Dermot O'Mahony, the former auxiliary in Dublin, who was found particularly by the Murphy report to have mishandled, I think it was 7 cases. And he wrote this extraordinary letter to Archbishop Martin about how he had been treated by him, how in these 50 years of priesthood he had never received a letter as harsh. But the man, this is after he was at a meeting of the priests of City West, where effectively he argued the point the whole way against Murphy. We had an interview with the former Chancellor of the Dublin Archdiocese, Alex Stenson, where effectively he turned the thing on its head. There is a massive denial still in operation here. And whereas after their winter meeting, the bishops did acknowledge fully, it seemed, and accept fully, it seemed, the Murphy report's findings and its recommendations, now they seem to have pulled back again. They accept. There's indication that they pulled back from the findings. It's really clear, and I mean, there's an enormous value in actually showing the amount of the press conference that you showed tonight, because we actually don't get to see that unless, you know, people are actually at the conference themselves. They accept nothing and they acknowledge nothing, unless they're actually forced to.
We're going to take a break, and after the break we'll continue the discussion, also preview tomorrow morning's newspapers. Join us then.
Tonight with Vincent Browne, sponsored by Bank of Scotland, Ireland.
Feeling uncomfortable? comfortable with yourself? Have you tried everything without results? Try the new CLA Booster Pharma Nord, the capsules with CLA and green tea that make your body firm and fit. With physical activity and diet, CLA burns fat, replaces it with lean body mass and shapes up your figure. No matter how you choose to shape up, CLA Booster makes it easier. CLA Booster Pharma Nord, available in pharmacies and health food stores near you.
Regular washing can leave bacteria alive in your laundry, especially at low temperatures. So Kate's sheets could be scarier than she thinks. But don't worry, use new Vanish Extra Hygiene. Just one scoop removes the toughest stains and kills 99.9% of bacteria, leaving your laundry hygienically clean. Vanish Extra Hygiene for your peace of mind. Vanish. Trust pink, forget stains and bacteria.
Twist Mop from JML is the self-wringing mop that twists and locks. Made from chenille microfiber, it helps make light work of big spills. Now you can help keep all hard surfaces clean and dry. Twist Mop is super absorbent, yet the 360-degree twist wrings out every last drop. See the wringing power for yourself. And it's so easy to store. Plus, the scourer tip is great for dried-on surface stains. Twist Mop from JML. Great value at just $9.99 from Woody's DIY and Atlantic Home Care.
Discover the new Nintendo DSi XL and enjoy more comfort when reading books from 100 Classic Book Collection on larger screens. Enjoy all the classics in style on 93% larger screens. Only on Nintendo DSi XL.
Women take longer than men to get ready. What's her secret? Olay Total Effects Touch of Foundation and Touch of Concealer. 2 new products, each with its own 7 age-defying effects, with a touch of Max Factor makeup. Foundation for a smooth, even-looking finish. Concealer for an instant reduction in the appearance of dark under-eye circles. Age-defying and makeup. In a flash. New Total Effects from Olay. Love the skin you're in.
It's the big one, not to be missed. Harvey Norman's biggest ever TV sale. Plasmas, LCDs and super slim LED TVs, all massively reduced. All the big brands, Philips, Samsung, LG, Sony, Finlux, Hisense and many more. Up to 50% off X-Display and special clearance lines. Everything must go. So if you're in the market for a TV bargain, get down to Harvey Norman. All sizes, all models, all brands reduced for 1 week only at our biggest ever TV sale on now. Go Harvey, go! Go Harvey Norman, go!
Tonight with Vincent Browne, sponsored by Bank of Scotland, Ireland.
Welcome back. We're joined by Bill Tomey, who's a consultant at Beaumont Hospital, and he's going to talk to us a little later on in our preview of tomorrow morning's newspapers about the fiasco in another hospital, in the Tara Hospital, over the x-rays. But just to continue for a moment on the press conference at the Bishops today. Patsy, one of the reasons that we were interested in the press conference was that we felt that since it was the first press conference the Bishops were to have since the meeting with the Pope, and since the statement that was issued after the meeting with the Pope had been in press relations terms or public relations terms such a fiasco, we thought there would be a real big effort now to put a different face on it, and that we